Our meeting to order. I would just first report that we do have regrets from Deputy Warden Perry and from Councillor Hebb. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki in the district of Sipekne'katik, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We will now have a moment of silent contemplation. Next on our agenda is the approval of or amendments to the agenda. Moved by Councillor Tingley. Seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. Next is the approval of the minutes of February the 14th, 2023 regular meeting of Council for Policy and the February 22nd regular meeting of Council. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. Next, we have correspondence for information. This has been before you, councillors. Are there any items under correspondence for information that anyone wishes to bring forward? Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Item number 61, about the letter to the landowners, just through you to staff. Is there an issue or is this just standard procedure?
Through you, Madam Warden. Not a particular issue. I mean, there's always, I guess, occasionally an enforcement issue around lakes, but it's something we've done once before, and it was quite helpful, I guess, in getting the word out to property owners around lakes what the regs are.
Okay. Thank you. Just maybe it's concern. Thanks.
Councillor Gordon Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you, I'm just looking to see what number it was, but when reading my correspondence for information, I was wondering about the budget, the extra funds for the aquatic center. It looked like, just looking for that report, I thought it was 16. Right there. And I just wondered if that is actually $7,000 in bank fees above and beyond what we were expecting.
Sue?
Through the warden. Yes, what happened in this case is now that the aquatic center is open full, this was the first year that we actually had it where we weren't closing, opening. The programs ran throughout the year. And with the new software that we have in place, Perfect Mind, people can register online and they can purchase their memberships, their swimming lessons and so on through credit card. So those are actually credit card charges that have been incurred throughout the year for memberships and so on and so forth. We did budget higher for next fiscal, knowing that they were going to come in, and you'll probably see that in a couple of places, that there will be overages on the bank fee side because we're using credit cards much more. The good news is that it looks like the federal government is going to implement that the fees for some entities will be less. I don't know if that'll be for not-for-profits and municipal government.
Okay.
That was announced. Thanks.
Thanks for the explanation. That's good. Thank you.
Anyone else have any correspondence for information they wish to bring forward? I would just briefly direct councilors' attentions for discussion that we may not be having tonight, but later on around the zoning issues, to a piece of correspondence from the municipality of the District of Lunenburg around the coastal erosion piece. It's might be of interest for councilors to read if you haven't seen it. Anyone else have any? I believe it was item 62. Anyone else have any items to bring forward? Seeing none, we will move along then to correspondence for decision. And bear with me, folks, I don't have a printed agenda with me. So the first item is a memo for council around a funding request from the Milford Recreation Association. And who's taking that one? John. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Yes, we do have a reserve for this type of thing. Right now, there's about $60,000 in that reserve. And the Milford Rec is an approved comfort center under our EMO plan, and they're looking for a grant of $10,000 to install a generator and wiring. The memo also talks about, in one of these previous grant requests, there was some discussion at council about delegating this to the staff level so that they didn't all have to come to council, but that was never actually actioned in terms of a motion. So in addition to considering this funding request, I guess we're looking also for some direction if you want these to keep coming to council, or if you want to direct us to develop a policy so that they don't have to keep coming back.
Thank you. So I guess at this time we'll deal perhaps with the recommended motion first, if someone's prepared to move it. Moved by Councillor Tingley, seconded by Councillor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Rhino.
Excuse me, but would a request such as this not come through the executive committee?
Well, that was, I guess, the question that we, not necessarily, I guess. It's a funding request to council, and there was no policy guidance. That's why it's here, and it's the way the previous one was dealt with as well.
Well, I just wanted, you know, other grants and stuff, we discussed this, and it goes through the executive committee. And now, nothing against this grant, but I would like to see it follow the same procedure, flow the same way as every other grant proposal. And if there's any discussion at that time, that can be had.
Any further discussion on the motion, councillors?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Before we go back to correspondence, is it the wish of council that we perhaps direct staff to develop a policy around these comfort center grants? Councilor Rhino.
Well, I guess for me, I'm thinking, you know, those grants, $10,000 is, in the big scheme of things, may not be too much, but if for a lot of taxpayers out there, 10,000, I really would appreciate the due diligence of this coming forth to the executive and flowing in the direction that I previously mentioned.
Councilor Tingley.
I'm just wondering, through the chair, if the CAO already has authority to,
No.
no? Well, because it says in the MGA, there's a part there that indicates that the CAO has authority to make expenditures if there's a council policy.
We don't have a policy that allows the CAO to award grants unless it's specifically,
Well,
The existing policy that we have says that this comes to council for decision.
Okay.
Perhaps, having heard from Councillor Rhino and Councillor Tingley, perhaps we could have this placed on the agenda for a future executive committee for a more fulsome discussion around whether we will have a policy or whether it will come to, and that policy might be that it come to executive committee for discussion first. Moving along, the next item. Yes, FCM board nominations. The time is with us that Councillor Mitchell needs to be reappointed for his second year on the board of FCM. The money is in the budget and that, but it does, and he is willing to serve a second year or have his name put forward, but it does require a motion of council in support of that happening. I don't know if there's a suggested resolution there. Yes, similar to what we did last year. I think we've been well served by Councillor Mitchell and kept abreast of what FCM has been working on, so I wonder if someone is prepared to move the motion to move the resolution be passed. Moved by Councillor Tingley, seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question's been called. Someone hasn't voted, folks.
Am I entitled to vote or no?
Yeah. And the motion is passed unanimously. It would not be good if you voted nay. Okay, going back to our agenda, the next item is I don't know. Yes, this item, I wish, does anyone have a printed agenda? I didn't print myself one, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can get it up on my screen.
That's yours.
Thank you. Which doesn't help me a lot. I have to get. Right, this item is a request for some consideration from a resident, and it is in regards to an issue that is under active investigation as a bylaw infraction, which puts it solidly in the purview of a legal issue. So my suggestion is that any discussion on this should be held in camera. We do have in-camera issues at the end of the evening, so my suggestion would be to add this to that list for discussion if council is in agreement with that. Agreed? I don't think we need a motion just to move that there. Next item is the NSFM Spring Conference, which will be held May 3rd to 5th in Digby, Nova Scotia. Council is asked to consider selecting delegates. It is generally the CAO, the warden, and 3 other delegates. So I guess I would ask if any councillors are interested in attending the spring conference in Digby. Councillor Tingley? Anyone else?
I would go if I can get someone to look after my dog. I will call my brother in the morning and see if he...
Okay, so tentatively, Councillor McPhee. Tentatively, Counselor Eisner. So, okay, you folks would get back to Shirley as soon as you know for certain. That would be great. So I guess I'd be looking for a motion to approve the CAO, myself and Counselors McPhee, Tingley, and Eisner to attend NSFM Spring Conference. Moved by Counselor Musa, seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Sorry, someone had their light on and I missed it. Okay. Are you ready for the question? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Next is the Association of Municipal Administrators, AMANS. It is now the turn of the region to which we belong to host the annual conference. And as in many, many past years, our contribution to the regional costs of hosting that is $3,000. So we would be looking for a motion to pay those costs. Moved by Counselor Green, seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question has been called. And the motion has passed by a vote of 8-1, with Counselor Rhino voting nay. Next item is a request from the East Hants Fire Service Association seeking, I lost it, seeking a change to the funding around officer training and such. Adam.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Warden. So in front of you, you have a letter from the East Hants Fire Service Association. At their meeting, the Chiefs meeting this past March, they discussed council has a policy that provides $10,000 each year for basic firefighter training and officer training. And any unused funding of that goes into the reserve each year. And if it goes slightly over the $10,000, then it comes from the reserve. They are requesting to expand the use of that funds to allow for specialized training and also guest speakers that would be agreed upon through the Chiefs Association, through the group, through its existing approval process. And I should note, just at a staff level, we took a look at the past 5 years, and you're averaging out of that $10,000, you're averaging just over $5,000 being used each year. Some years it's been $12,000, some years it's been $2,000. So this request could likely be done within that annual allotment. You wouldn't need to increase that allotment. So I guess the steps forward for council here today are either to push it to the Fire Advisory Committee. Their next meeting is in, I believe, June, so they could discuss this letter and make a recommendation to council. Your other path would be to request a staff report and policy changes, and we could bring that forward through committee.
Thank you. Councilors, what is your wish? We either need a motion to ask staff to bring forward a report, or we send it to Fire Advisory and they will send it back to council to request staff to bring us a report. Councilor Green.
Move that staff bring us back a report, and then after we hear the report, it could go to Fire Advisory then to be discussed.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Garden Cole. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. So that concludes, I believe, correspondence for decision. We have a few minutes before the public hearing, So I think we might have time to do item 10, the ratification for the sale of the South Rawdon Community Hall at 1941 South Rawdon Road. And Councillor Tingley with Deputy Warden Perry's absence. This is a corporate report. I would ask if you would stick handle this one, please.
Okay. Council previously gave an in-camera direction to staff to dispose of the former South Rawdon Community Hall, PID number 451-26349 via real estate agent. 7 offers were received and reviewed by the CAO. An agreement of purchase and sale was entered into with the highest bidder at a purchase price of $71,000 plus HST. The sale closes on February 22nd, 2023. Move that council ratify the in-camera direction to staff to list the South Rawdon Community Hall for sale by real estate agent and authorize the CAO to review offers received and enter into an agreement based on the parameters discussed in camera, and move the council ratify an agreement of purchase and sale with Zach Frail for $71,000 plus HST with proceeds from the sale of the property, less expenses incurred for the disposal, set aside in the capital reserve to be used for future benefit of the surrounding area. As Vice Chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question?
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Well, we still have some time. I would ask the Accessibility Advisory Committee report. Deputy Warden Perry is absent. Councillor Mitchell, I would ask if you would.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on March the 1st, 2023. The following motions are coming forward as a result of the meeting. Number 1, overview of the Accessibility Act and East End's Accessibility Plan. The Manager of Planning gave a presentation on the Accessibility Act and the Municipal Accessibility Plan. Number 2, Accessibility Plan Report Card. The Manager of Planning gave a presentation on the Accessibility Plan Report Card. The report card indicates whether objectives of the plan are complete, in progress, or not started. It was noted that the Accessibility Plan has to be reviewed every 3 years. The Accessibility Advisory Committee recommends to Council that Council accept the report and place it on file. As Vice Chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously.
Item 3, emotional support therapy animals. The Manager of Planning gave a presentation on emotional support and therapy animals. The goal of the Service Dog Act is to prevent service dog users from being denied access to public places and refused tenancy rights. This act does not cover other emotional support or therapy animals. The municipality has been asked if there is a policy that permits or prohibits the public bringing support animals into municipal buildings. There is not. Community members share their experience with municipal staff on emotional support and therapy animals. As Vice Chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
It's been moved and seconded by Councillor Musa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion is carried. Moving along, I will turn the chair over to Councillor Garden Cole and I will give the audit committee report. In Deputy Warden Perry's absence, I chaired the audit committee meeting that was held prior to council. I would simply report that the audit committee held a meeting on March 29th, 2023. We received a presentation from Danielle Gosson, CPA, and Paul Janes, CPA, CA from Deloitte on the 2022-2023 audit service plan. There are no recommendations coming forward to council at this time, so I would move the adoption of this report.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, all those contrary? Motion is passed unanimously.
Okay. Well, we still have 3 or 4 minutes before the time of the public hearing. I don't want to start early in case there are folks coming or waiting to watch online. I'm not sure we will go to Councillor Tingley to start the Corporate and Residential Services Committee report, with the understanding we may not get too far through it before 7:30.
Okay. The committee held its regular meeting on March 21st, 2023 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of that meeting. Acceptance of donation policy. The acceptance of donations policy addresses how the municipality accepts and manages donated funds and gifts. The policy update only requires housekeeping changes, with one proposed amendment to increase the size of the donation eligible for tax receipt. Committee decided to maintain the eligibility value at $20. The policy has been updated to include a caveat from the Corporate and Residential Services Committee to maintain the value at $20. It is attached to the council agenda dated March 29, 2023. The Corporate and Residential Service Committee recommend to council that council approve the acceptance of the donation policy as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated March 29, 2023. As Vice Chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question's been called. And the motion has passed with a vote of 8-1, with Councillor McPhee voting nay. Okay, that brings us pretty close to the hour of 7:30, so we will pause the Corporate and Residential Services Committee report to move into our public hearing. Councilors, this evening we have one item on the public hearing agenda. The purpose of this hearing is for council to hear input from the public prior to making a decision on the proposal. To the members of the public who have chosen to participate this evening, welcome. Please note that council's procedural policy requires that you not cheer, boo, clap, or otherwise disrupt the hearing. Anyone who wants to comment or ask questions will be provided an opportunity to do so. Tonight, council may approve, reject, or defer its decision on the proposal to a later date. Council approval is required for the proposal to proceed. I would just make note that the hearing tonight is an application by the Stevens Group of Companies to permit a 4-story, 70-unit assisted living facility. I would now ask the municipal clerk to outline when the public hearing advertisements were published.
Madam Warden, a public hearing notice appeared in the March 15th and 22nd editions of the Chronicle Herald. The notices described the proposal, gave the date and time of the public hearing, and indicated that staff reports were available to the public.
Councilors, the public hearing this evening is to enter into a development agreement to enable a 4-story, 70-unit assisted living facility in Enfield. I would now ask the Chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his report. And the Chair of the committee, we just changed chairs. That's you, Norval? Yeah. Go ahead.
Planning Advisory Committee has considered the proposal on behalf of Municipal Council. The committee has reviewed staff reports, completed their evaluation, and will make a recommendation to council during this hearing. Madam Warden, through you, I would now ask staff to present their final report on the proposal.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So as already mentioned, the applicant is by the Stevens Group of Companies, and the application is to substantially amend an existing development agreement for an assisted living facility, and the proposal includes a 4-story, 70-unit building. So the property is outlined in red on the map. It's located at 410 Highway 2 Enfield, and there was originally a dwelling on the property, but that's since been demolished. There is an existing development agreement registered on the property, which was for an assisted living facility, and that was approved in 2008, along with approval for the Magnolia Nursing Home, which is just on the map here, you can see with my pointer. The land is currently zoned 2 dwelling units, residential, and to the north of the site is the Magnolia Nursing Home, and the nursing home property is zoned institutional use. To the west are existing residential zone properties with existing buildings located on them, and to the east of the site is the driveway for the Magnolia and then a residential zone property. You can see the driveway is just in blue here, which is the institutional use, and it's located on the nursing home property. So the proposal is for a 4-story, 70-unit assisted living facility. The application is requesting a substantial amendment to an existing development agreement, which will enable the building. In addition to this, the original agreement will be discharged. Policy OS 29 of the MPS enables institutional use zone uses to be considered in all zones by development agreement, and an assisted living facility falls under the definition of special care, which is an institutional zone use. The assisted living facility will be privately owned and operated by Rosecrest Communities, as opposed to provincially regulated facilities. There is no assignment of beds, and tenants will occupy units on an application-based rental system. When it comes to time for a person to transition to a more intensive long-term care facility, residents must apply for admission through the Nova Scotia Department of Health and Wellness. So there are a number of services provided at the facility, and they include personal care, medication management and assistance, memory care, social and recreational activities, housekeeping and laundry, security, transportation, and nutritional services. So I've included a copy of the site plan, and this building here where my pointer is the assisted living facility. This is the Magnolia long-term care facility. Where my pointer is here, this is the existing driveway for the Magnolia, and this will be shared by the assisted living facility. I've zoomed in a little bit here so you can see some of the setbacks to adjacent residential properties, and you can see some of the existing boundary screening here. Parking will be out the front of the building, and there is an amenity area to the rear here. And I should also just point out that there is a proposed trail that will be included for use of residents of the facility, and that will link into an existing trail that's there for the nursing home residents. So we have some renderings here of the building. This one here, you can see the driveway going into the property, and this is the proposed assisted living facility. And as mentioned, it's a 4-story building. You can see here alongside the building, there's some parking between the building and these residential properties, which fronts onto Highway number 2. And this shows the parking out front of the proposed building. So as part of the reviewing the application, staff consult with internal and external departments. And some of those comments received, Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, they raised no traffic impact concerns with the proposed developments. They did say that the existing driveway for the property should be removed and all traffic be rerouted through an upgraded entrance for the Magnolia. And that's what the site plan shows. The RCMP raised some concerns about traffic in the corridor area, but Nova Scotia Public Works did not request a traffic impact study and did not raise traffic impact concerns related to the application. Enfield Volunteer Fire Department provided no comments. Municipal Department of Roads and Engineering, there were no specific concerns raised by this department, and their requirements can be dealt with at the permit stage. So there are requirements in the development agreements that the applicant or the property owner will have to go through to before they can receive their permit. 71 parking spaces is proposed, of which 4 will be accessible. Residents generally do not own vehicles. They operate at around 2 staff per 5 residents at full staff. So to estimate with that plus 10, they estimate around 45 employees on the property maximum. And that would leave 26 spaces for residents and visitors. Staff have evaluated this parking provision and consider that this is sufficient for the proposed use. So the application does not propose designated staff accommodation units. However, the applicant has indicated there may be a need for temporary accommodations for staff when there are units available. And this issue of housing, lack of housing for healthcare workers, is supported by recent comments from the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So the draft development agreement enables temporary housing to be provided for staff of the assisted living facility or the adjacent long-term care facility. They're not proposed as permanent accommodation units for staff. Planning staff suggest that this approach is appropriate, particularly considering the current housing crisis. At the March meeting of Planning Advisory Committee, some concerns were raised, or a request was made to include some further text in the development agreements around this temporary accommodation. So that has been added, so it's clear that temporary staff accommodation may be provided if the units are not needed for the assisted living facility. So the approximate setbacks from the proposed building have been provided on the plan. You can see on the screen, and we've overlaid the proposed footprint over the aerial photography, and you can see the setbacks from the property boundaries. And the approximate, staff have estimated the approximate setback from this property here, which is 10 Dory Lane, is 96 metres. So 96 metres from the back of the building to here. This area will be retained with established deciduous and coniferous trees. The approximate height of the building is 13.9 metres, and the maximum height of a dwelling in an R2 zone is 11 metres. So the proposed building height is approximately 3 metres higher than permitted as of right. So looking at properties, existing dwellings on Highway 2, you can see here that in the presentation, I've estimated that the approximate distance from the corner of the building here and the back deck on Civic 408 is approximately 37 metres, which is 121 feet. And again, there are some existing mature deciduous or coniferous trees, and also the development agreement requires an opaque fence to be provided between the parking area and these existing dwellings. So this vegetated screening will be retained and a fence will be included. I've included some photographs here of the application property and the properties fronting onto Highway 2, and you can see these existing trees here. These are actually on the application property, and I've included a picture there, and you can see here where the property boundary is located and the existing vegetation here. So in order to understand some of the shadow impacts from the building, or if there is shadow impacts, 2 dates were looked at, December the 21st, which is the shortest day in the year, and June the 21st. And at 9 a.m. on December the 21st, you can see the shadow is up here to this side of the building. And then at 3 p.m., the shadow is in front of the nursing home. And then on June the 21st at 6 a.m., the shadow is towards the back of the building. And then on June the 21st at 6 p.m., the shadow is down here. So the setback of the building from existing dwellings surrounding the site mean that there isn't any real impact from shadow on those existing buildings in the area. So a rough calculation of the financial impact has been undertaken by planning staff. There are no new roads or sidewalks required for the development, so a simple analysis was provided. And based on assumptions have been made to look at the potential value of a facility of this nature, and based on a potential value of 8 million, the approximate tax is 87,480. And then if the developer or if the property owner was to develop as of right, they would be able to accommodate two unit buildings, so 4 dwelling units, and that would be an approximate value of 1.8 million. And that would be an approximate tax value of 19,440 per year. So a letter and questionnaire were mailed to property owners within 300 meters of the application site, and approximately 140 questionnaires were mailed out, 10 were returned, and responses were mostly in favor. There was one response that was not in favor. All of the comments have been provided in the staff report, but I'll just run through them here quickly now, some of the ones that have been summarized here. So support the project as it will enable people to remain in the community. This type of facility is needed for the rapidly growing area, and they're in favor of the proposal. One person raised concerns about the impact of the increase of development in the area, but they are in favor of the proposal. There was concern with traffic on Highway 2. There's a rapidly growing demand for assisted living in Nova Scotia, and they're pleased to see the increase from 50 units to 70 units. And someone said they don't think this should be located in a residential area of Enfield. This person said that there are already issues with water quality, lack of infrastructure to accommodate existing population, and a playground would be better planned for the property. There were quite a few more comments that were provided, but then those have been summarised in the staff report, and all of the questionnaires have also been scanned for council to review. In addition to the advertisements that are outlined by the clerk, a letter has been mailed to property owners within 300 metres of the application site, confirming the date, time and location of this public hearing. So at the Planning Advisory Committee meeting this month, some concerns were raised regarding the wording of the recommended motion. And after consultation with the municipal solicitor, an amended motion has been drafted for council, and the amended motion references the discharge of the original development agreements. And that amended motion has been provided in the script for tonight. So to conclude, staff have completed the review of the application for the substantial amendment to an existing development agreement. The proposal will not have a significant impact on neighbouring residential properties. It's located adjacent to a complementary use and will provide a much-needed housing option for those that need support services to live independently. Staff recommended that the application be approved. And also just a note to say that any decisions to approve or not approve the development agreement application is appealable to Utility and Review Board. And you can see with the chart at the bottom of the presentation, we're at the point of the public hearing, and council can either approve or refuse, and either decision there is a right of appeal. Thank you, Madam Warden.
Thank you, Rachel. Does any member of council have questions for staff? Councillor Garden Cole. We're trying.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just a couple of points on page 14, I believe. Going back to the plan that shows the vegetation. Knowing the area, I believe the majority of that vegetation is going to be gone. It's where the parking lot is. So it'll just be the opaque fence that will be left there, is that correct? There won't be any new vegetation, like there it implies, that there's going to be a row of vegetation there, but that's just kind of a picture, right?
Through you, Madam Warden, I'm just going to grab the development agreement to see exactly what it says. So the parking area to the southeast of the assisted living facility shall be buffered from the adjacent residential properties with a minimum of 1.8 metre high opaque wooden fence or solid wall. This area shall also be buffered with existing trees and or an area of evergreen trees and evergreen or deciduously dense twigged deciduous shrubs. So if there are existing trees that can be maintained, then the requirement is to keep those, but it says shall also be buffered with existing trees and/or an area of evergreen trees and evergreen. So basically, the development agreement says that if they can keep the vegetation that's there, if not, then they're to replace it with vegetation. So there needs to be a fence and some vegetation there.
Okay, thank you. And my second point is, I see that there has been included, so I'm not in favor of employees living in this residence. Staff says that that it seems appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate for staff to be living in this residence if those units can be rented out to folks who need it. So I see it says following the March meeting, it's been amended to be clear that the temporary staff accommodations can only be used if they are not needed for assistant living residents. So I assume that there will be no people living in those residents and have anybody on a wait list. Is that correct? Is that how we've got it?
Through you, Madam Warden, the development agreement says that when units are not needed for the assisted living facility, temporary housing may be provided. So it's clear that when there's a need for units, then that staff housing won't be provided. It will be provided if there isn't a need for units.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Does any other counselor have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I would now ask if the applicant has any comments or would like to make a presentation.
Good evening, councillors and Madam Warden. My name is Mark Van Zumeren. I'm a design engineer with the Stevens Group of Companies, and with me I have Jacob Fenchuk. He's a planner that works for the Stevens Group. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. To begin, on behalf of the staff and residents of the Magnolia, I'd like to thank the staff, council, and citizens of East Hants for the warm welcome into your community and continued support we've received over the last 16 years. It doesn't seem that long. I guess it's when you're having fun, time flies. So since 2008, our plan has been to provide an age-in-place development, giving people the opportunity to remain in the community that you call home. This proposed assisted living facility is a key part of that goal. Input and feedback from municipal staff, in particular Rachel Gilbert and John Woodford, has proved invaluable in fine-tuning the plan that you see before you. And experience gained over the years by our design staff has enabled us to go from an original 50-unit, 5-story building to the current well-thought-out 70-unit, 4-story building, with increased amenities over that originally envisioned and approved in the 2008 development agreement. One such amenity, I, as the site designer, am particularly proud of is the trail connection from Highway 2 up through the site to the school on Catherine Street that is used daily by the students. This commuter traffic has proven to be an important part of many of our residents' day, providing a vital connection with a much younger crowd than they would normally see. And I'm pleased that this connection will be further enhanced with upgrades to the trail and walkway during this project. And I appreciate the comments from the Planning Advisory Committee on whether our staff is living in there and whether the units are, only if the units are available. And the wording has proved very elegant. And that is definitely our goal, was that's only if there's nothing available. I mean, if there's not a need for it. Again, thank you for your welcome, and we look forward to many, many more years of expanded service in this exceptional community. Thank you.
Okay, I am going to allow a question from council following this presentation. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question in mind that concerns the staff accommodations, I know it's saying there's no permanent staff staying there, and if they were to be temporary, would weather events like in the wintertime cause staff to not travel back to where they live? Would that be a condition where they could stay?
Good question. The units in there would be living units. So, we wouldn't use them for, I don't think, in that kind of event. If there was a weather condition, then the staff would be the appropriate transportation to travel home, but we wouldn't use them for that kind of thing. What we're thinking more in terms of is we have to go further and further for staffing and including immigrant workers. But we were thinking of this temporary housing would be a landing spot for someone who's coming from away, and they don't have the opportunity to find full-time accommodations until they get here. So they would be able to arrive and begin work and begin their training, and then have a couple months to find full-time accommodation if needed. And that was our only intent in the temporary housing for staff.
So what would you classify as temporary, just so I have an understanding?
Just a couple months, a month or two, yeah.
Thank
Just
you,
long
Madam Chair,
enough to
that's all.
find something.
Thank you.
Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'm on the other side of that. I know the provincial government is doing everything to get people to join the force and do healthcare, and they're giving them everything. So I don't see any reason why not letting staff be in there. And how a building, if you cannot get staff that live here and live far away, so those staff, they're gonna pay for their home over there and another rental here. So it's gonna be an obstacle for them to have staff. So, and a full facility without staff is not gonna run. Like, if you can have enough staff, and that's the only way you could attract them, so why not allow them to have that? So I'm seeing a different than my colleague here, but I think the facility have to run, and I'm pretty sure if they can, they will run it in the right direction. Thank you.
And further to that, we recently purchased the house just to the east of our driveway, which is ultimately intended to be housing for staff as well. So.
I will now open the floor for comments and questions from the public. If you are viewing the YouTube live stream, you may use the YouTube chat feature, which is being monitored. First, does anyone attending in person have any comments or questions? If you would come to the mic, please, and please state your name and address for the record.
Rick Hamer. I live 1 Bona Crescent, which is very close to the Magnolia at the back. I'm basically in favor of everything. The only thing that gave me a little pause for concern as the presentation was given was the parking. It just seemed like a little, to make the assumption that people in assisted living generally don't need parking just didn't make sense to me. So that was my only concern. I mean, what age group are you targeting, and why that assumption would be made? Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know if the applicant wants to address that or if staff has an answer or. Okay, over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So there is 21 spaces. Right, here we go. 26 spaces for residents and visitors. So there is parking there available for residents should they have a vehicle. But in speaking with the applicant and from their experience of running or knowing about other facilities of this nature, their experience is that residents tend to not have vehicles, but there is spaces there should they need them. But I maybe the applicant could kind of expand on their experience.
Does the applicant have anything to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, Jacob Fenchek here. Yeah, in terms of our Magnolia and other ones we've looked at, especially Shanix as well, in terms of looking at their kind of estimates with the parking that they've had through their residences, is kind of how we've done an exercise to arrive at the number. So we definitely do feel like it would be efficient if there are residents that have that vehicle. Through our experience, it rarely is that they will have their own vehicle. But in the case that there is, we feel that number, that 26 number for residents and visitors is suffice.
I'm just wondering about when you're comparing, are you comparing apples to apples? Because if you're talking about assisted living care facility in HRM versus in Enfield, HRM you have bus system, et cetera. Out here we don't. So that might make you want to have more parking. Like I could see, I mean, I guess it depends on the age too that you're targeting. But I mean, my dad drove till he was 75, so, and I'm 60, so. But yeah, anyways.
Thank you. I would just add that thought had crossed my mind too, because I know of at least two people in similar facilities, both of whom own automobiles and provide their own transportation. So I'm sure there will be some residents that do. Okay, is there anyone else in the room have any comments or questions? Seeing none, does any member of the public have any questions or comments through the live chat on the YouTube live stream? Julie? No one on the YouTube channel? Does any member of staff have any final comments?
No, thank you.
No? I do believe that there is a final comment by staff in the presentation. And I believe you did refer to this earlier, but I just wanted to follow the.
We're referring to the amended motion?
Yes,
Yes.
it starts to address comments.
Yes, that's been included in the script, so the chair of PAC can read that through. I've included that in the script.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would now ask the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his committee's recommendation. Back to you, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give final consideration and approve entering in a development agreement for an assisted living facility at 410 Highway 2 Enfield within 1 year of council's approval. As chair, I move that council give final consideration for an assisted living facility at 410 Highway 2 Enfield, the registration of which will discharge the existing development agreement registered on December 3rd, 2008 as document number 92294314 within 1 year of council's approval. As chair of PAC, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. Is there any discussion?
Question?
The question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. This concludes tonight's public hearing, and I would thank you all for attending. Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving back to our agenda, I will go back to Councillor Tingley to continue with the Corporate and Residential Services Report.
Next item is Sportsplex Facility Condition Assessment. In June 2022, East Hants awarded the Facility Condition Assessment Project to Dillon Consulting as part of the larger Corporate Asset Management Consulting Services Contract, RFP 50475. The Facility Condition Assessment was completed by a team consisting of electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, structural engineer, architect, and a quality surveyor cost estimator. Field work was conducted in September 2022. The assessment was limited to a visual observation made via non-intrusive review of the interior and exterior of the facility. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend to Council that Council receive the facility condition assessment for the East Hants Sportsplex dated December 8th, 2022, and as updated January 30th, 2023. As Vice Chair of the Committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Tingley.
Next item, transit workshop date selection. As part of the 2023-24 East Hants Business Plan, Economic and Business Development propose a project to develop Council's vision and potential plan for the transit as a service in East Hants. The Corporate and Residential Service Committee recommends to Council to set a date for the transit workshop for May 18th, 2023. As Vice Chair of the Committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And the motion is passed by a vote of 8-1, with Councillor Rhino voting nay.
As Vice Chair of the Committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. Next, we will go to the Fire Advisory Committee report. Over to you, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Warden. The committee did not meet this month. A recommendation for recognition has been received from Elmsdale Fire and Emergency Services. Rather than wait for the next meeting in June, the committee agreed via email and unanimously supported the recognition and to move this request forward to Council for decision. Recognition for support of fire departments. Chief Goodman, on behalf of his department, has recommended that Council recognize Lino Rabai for supporting the department by donating food, ice, and supplies when needed and allowing the department to get what they need from his store anytime and return later to pay. Move that Council recognize Lino Rabai for supporting Elmsdale Fire and Emergency Services through the donation of food, ice, supplies, and credit at his store. As Chair of the Committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And the motion is passed unanimously.
As Chair of the Committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion is carried. Next on our agenda, we will go to the Infrastructure and Operations Committee report. Over to you, Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on March 21st, 2023 in council chambers. There are no motions coming forward as a result of that meeting. Number 1, Highway 214 Active Transportation Project Update. The Director of Infrastructure and Operations gave an update on the current plan forward for the Highway 214 Active Transportation Project. The project consists of 4 sections of new infrastructure, mainly focused along Highway 214, per a funding agreement established through all levels of government. As Chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion is carried. Next, I would ask Councillor Garden Cole to take the chair.
Go
And
ahead.
I will present the nominating committee's report. The committee held a meeting on March 21st, 2023 in room 168. The following motion is coming forward as a result of this meeting. The East Hants Source Water Protection Advisory Committee public members. Staff advertised public positions for the East Hants Source Water Protection Advisory Committee for approximately 7 weeks. No new applications were received prior to the deadline of March 1st, 2023. The 4 current members expressed interest in continuing their membership for another 3-year term. 1 vacancy remains for the representative working in the agricultural sector within East Hants that has a stake in the water supply. When a qualifying candidate is identified, staff will bring a report back to the nominating committee for consideration. The nominating committee recommends that council reappoint the following public members to the East Hants Source Water Protection Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending in March 31st, 2026. Donica Poirier-McGugan, Tom Mills, Jill Searle, and Patricia Lyle. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
We have to go to the vote. Seconder. Did we have a seconder?
Okay, moved and seconded? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And it has passed unanimously.
That concludes the report. As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those contrary? And it has passed unanimously.
So moving along in the agenda, we'll now go to the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee report. Over to you, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Committee held its regular meeting on March 21st, 2023 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of the meeting. Tourism grants. The Tourism Grant Program provides a single-year financial support to nonprofit, community-based organizations whose purpose is to operate tourism attractions or facility in East Hants with a focus on attracting visitors from local, national, and international markets. 4 applications were received by the February 28, 2023 deadline. The applications were reviewed by the Staff Grant Review Committee and were all found to be eligible under the Tourism Grant Policy. So from that, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommend to Council that the Tourism Grant funding recommendations totaling $33,900 be approved for the following organizations. East Hants Historical Society, $5,000. Maitland District Development Association, $17,000. Walton Area Development Association, $3,900. Church Society, $8,000. With that, $800 held back pending completion of the Sundial project. and that staff released approved funds as confirmation of external funding sources for the proposed projects are received from each group. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Counselor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
Second item agenda was district recreation funds and the January intake. The district recreation funding program offers annual funding opportunities to groups that provide benefit to the residents of East Hants and provide for the development of these programs, activities, and infrastructure that encourage activity and healthy lifestyles. The first DRF intake closed on January 31st, 2023. There were 6 grant applications, and those applications were reviewed by staff grant committee and evaluated against council policy. So from that, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends to council that council approve District Recreation Funds 2023-2024 intake number 1 as follows. 9 Mile River Community Club, $3,598. District 3 total, $3,598 for a grand total of $3,598. Rainbow Community Club, $7,603 from District 6 for a total of the same. Enfield Elmsdale District Lions Club, $22,602. District 10 from District 10, $32,602. From District 1, $10,000. From District 2, $7,398 for a grand total of $50,000. Gore District Volunteer Fire Department, $9,200. From District 11, $8,544. And District 11 Rod and Gore 1 cent grant, 6,000 levy grant, I think. 6,556 for a grand total of 9,200. That for a total
656.
656, excuse me, for a grand total of $9,200. And that totals the totals of those were $70,401. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Rhino.
Thank you. Volunteer recognition. At the October 2022 council meeting, it was approved to host the event on April 21st, 2023 at the Uniacke Legion and will be combined with the Firefighter Long Service Awards. Promotion for volunteer nominations began in January 2023 with social media posts, direct communications with community groups via email, and inquiries through the office. So from that, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends to council to approve the Shining Star nominees provided to date and that the confidential Model Volunteer Award nomination forwarded by email to council be approved and designated to represent the municipality of East Hants at the 2024 Provincial Volunteer Awards. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Counselor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
And before I go on, I want to clarify that will take place on a Friday evening. It was previously posted by mistake on a Saturday, so that will be on a Friday evening. 104, Central Rawdon Hall update. The Central Rawdon Hall, while owned and insured by the municipality, has been operated and maintained by the Central Rawdon Community Club for approximately 30 years. In October 2022, the hall was extensively damaged after being struck by a vehicle. Upon inspection by qualified engineer, the building was deemed irreparable. In February, Parks, Recreation, and Culture and Corporate Services staff held a community meeting to outline the various options. The community group discussed those options and determined that they did not have the capacity to fund or oversee a rebuild and provide future maintenance costs and preferred a playground and park on site. So from that, the Parks and Recreation and Culture Committee recommends to council to direct staff to move forward with a cash value settlement and hold the funds in a special reserve for the playground and park development on the site of the former Center Rawdon Hall, PID number 451-49754, with the anticipated start date of construction in the summer of 2023, and that the Center Rawdon Community Park Development Capital Project number 23-022 be attached to the March 21st, 2023 executive agenda, be approved as an additional capital project for 2023-2024. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
Madam Warden, as this brings me to the end of my report, as chair of the committee, I do move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion is carried. Moving along, that brings us to the Planning Advisory Committee report. Over to you, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on March 21st, 2023 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of that meeting. PLN 23-002, Abdul Habosh, rezoning Elmsdale initial report. The municipality received an application from Abdul Habosh to rezone property on Pine Hill Drive from established residential neighborhood R1 zone to the two dwelling unit residential R2 zone. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council give first reading to rezone properties identified as PIDs 454-16989, 454-21435, 454-21427, 454-21419, 454-21401, and 454-21393, located on Pine Hill Drive from the established residential neighborhood R1 zone to the two-unit dwelling residential R2 zone, and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back.
Item number 2, PLN 22-008, Stevens Group of Companies, Development Agreement, Enfield, final report. This was dealt with at the public hearing. Last item, plan update, final amendments, and first reading report. As part of the plan update project, staff presented revised draft planning documents with edits made as a result of the public consultation, council direction, and staff review. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council direct staff to bring back a report to a further Planning Advisory Committee meeting to look at the erosion and floodplain zones and to include the maps for 2050 and 2100 floodline scenarios, and to look at options, not permanent structures, for landowners on the shore to maximize opportunities for the land. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor.
Madam Warden, as chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Counselor Green. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion has carried. That brings us to the time of the warden's report. And my apologies, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot my notes. So I will give it a stab from my calendar. I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Garden Cole.
Go ahead.
So on the 1st of March, along with some staff members, I did have a meeting with Nova Scotia Health here at the Lloyd Matheson Centre. This was not the division of Nova Scotia Health that looks for doctors and things like that, but just more or less an update report of where things were. But it was certainly good to be able to brief these folks on the growth that we're experiencing within the municipality, and that what the future needs will only continue to increase. I also attended the Senior Boys Basketball Provincial Championships at Hants North on the 6th of March. Very well attended by local folk, and very exciting, very well played games. I wasn't there to watch all the games. I did watch some of them online. And the Hants North Flames Senior Boys Basketball came out victorious and are current provincial champions. So certainly wish to send out a congratulation for games well played and good sportsmanship displayed. And also, I think kudos to the wider Hants North community for coming together and providing the hospitality suite and all of the food and everything that went with that to host this tournament. I attended the normal directors meetings, and that is about it. I did meet with a developer who is interested in doing some development on the rural side of the municipality, just for information on what some of his ideas were. And I guess that really, I can't think of anything else official that I probably did this month other than the normal calls from folks and discussions of issues. So that would conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Warden.
Okay. Now we will go to business from councillors, and I'll start tonight with Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just a short note on, I too attended the basketball tournament at Hants North. I'd like to echo your comments. The Hants North area never ceases to amaze me. The fan support was just, the place was packed for every Hants North game. I was there for every Hants North game. Brought back a lot of memories of good old Hants North days. The community rallied so much in for hospitality suites and everything. All the teams were so appreciative of how it was organized and how it was run. So kudos to the people of Hants North that really, for a smaller population, they're second to none with regard to putting on events such as that. And last Saturday evening on the 25th, I attended and presented on your council's behalf an 80th birthday certificate for Mrs. Joy Miller. It was a great time, attended by many, and she was very much appreciative of the recognition of her 80th birthday, and I tried to make a deal for her 85th birthday as well. So here goes. Hope both can make it. So anyway, that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Rhino. Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Short report for local things. I attended the FCM board meeting in Ajax, Ontario from the 6th to the 9th. I also have some information to share from the FCM. FCM priorities continue to be infrastructure, climate adaptation and mitigation, housing and homelessness, community well-being. The FCM is calling on the next federal budget, which was yesterday, to address municipal infrastructure needs, including water and wastewater infrastructure fund, doubling of the proven Canadian Community Building Fund, the CCBF, former gas tax, investments in transit like the Rural Transit Solution Fund, immediate increase to the Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Fund, the DMAF, $2 billion in 2022-2023, and $1 billion per year over the 10 years following for disaster mitigation and infrastructure. I'm on two committees. The first one is the Standing Committee on Anti-Racism and Equity, and the topic of that committee was inclusivity, and it began with talking about white privilege, which is basically taken for granted. The groups that don't have that privilege are Black, Indigenous, immigrants, and people of color. And they have issues with housing. I have some advantage with housing, known language, know how things work, and I have a circle of friends that a lot of our immigrants do not have. I had conversations with directors from New Brunswick and Newfoundland, Labrador, and the discussions dealt around trying to get together on common concerns and issues and speak with one voice for Atlantic Canada to the FCM and also to the federal government. We were also hoping in the budget there'd be funding for a connector between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to mitigate the effects of climate change, which could affect the rail system and the roadway that connects both. And that concludes the FCM information. I want to thank council for having confidence in me for another year, and we'll see how the election goes into May. And the last note, Pauline and myself will be on vacation from April the 2nd to April the 16th. I will put a post on Facebook so that they'll know that they can contact anybody else if they have a concern. And that is my report, and I thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Question for Counselor Mitchell's report. Counselor Musa, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Mitchell, for bringing that immigration stuff. Was there any talk about people who want to visit their relatives here and they were denied? Like, as of last few months, my daughter got married and my sister applied to come here, and she was denied because they told her, everyone knows that the situation in Lebanon is bad with the banking and everything, all the money held in the banks, but they told her that she have no proof that she could survive here. She have two brothers, and we both doing well, and we offer everything, and also she was denied. So I think if you raise this issue, I will be very appreciative. Thank you.
Comment? We had those discussions, but as we know, it's lodged with the federal government and what they decide they want to do. But I'll bring that forward when we meet in May and see if we can move that ball forward.
Thank you.
Any further questions around Counselor Mitchell's FCM report? Anything further, Counselor Mitchell? No. Counselor Eisner.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just got a couple of things here. I'm looking for a sign lost off of the police station yard. It was, me and Corey drove it into the ground and slow down. We love our children sign, so still trying to look for that. Might have to put up another one. And on a happier note, we're just, me and Sandra Garden Coles are gonna present this certificate, and thanks for staff for making it, for Rita White for her 95th birthday this Sunday at the Enfield Legion. So, thank you very much.
Counselor McPhee.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and like yourself, I forgot my notebook at home, so I made a few notes off of my calendar. On the 3rd, I attended a meeting at the community room, which is a new facility that's what I consider the old post office, but is connected to the Violet Rose thrift shop. A nice facility there, and it was put on by ATENS, and I forget exactly what ATTENS stands for, but it was a public engagement meeting on the health and wellness of the community. And so that was interesting. And on the 7th of March, I attended a public information meeting here at the Lloyd Matheson building, and it certainly was an interesting meeting. On the 13th and 27th of March, again in the community room, we had meetings with, considering the Heydays Committee and trying to find some fresh blood. So if anybody happens to be listening that would like to join up for the next meeting, give me a call or drop me an email. And another thing I'd like to mention is the playground is just getting busier. When I went by it on Monday, I don't know how many children there were playing there, but it was very busy. And people walking their dogs, so the community park, the Shuby Park, River Park is getting well used. And hopefully we'll get some more improvements and things will continue to improve there. And I did have a discussion, which nothing formal, but just with a person regarding the agricultural zoning with in the Hants North area and that, and this was with a local farmer, so wondering just what's going on with that, so I gave him the best information I could on it. So other than that, I think that was everything. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Community groups in District 1 are gearing up for the spring and summer season, so I've been meeting with them about grant applications, etc. I did attend a public meeting this month, as well as a CCOA board meeting. I've had several calls and emails recently about the latest swimming registration at the Aquatic Center. Seems like this latest registration has snowballed into a big issue. Residents, the big thing I'm getting from residents is, understandably, I mean, there's not enough spots for everybody who wants to register, but what they are concerned about is that residents outside the municipality of East Hants are registering before residents of, who live in the municipality. Just wondering if staff might be able to comment that. I realize that that is on your agenda, but because I've been contacted about it, I just felt I needed to bring it up at the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Warden. Absolutely. We did receive an unprecedented volume of response to our spring registration. And we do understand that there has been some concerns about East Hants residents versus non-residents. And there's a lot of different factors. So I did share some information with council. We have to look at a number of things. And we are going to bring something back for council discussion, but we would look at a jurisdictional scan of what other municipally run facilities do. We have to look at our Perfect Mind software and the capabilities within that. And we do have to do a fairly deep dive into understanding the percentages of East Hants residents versus non-East Hants residents. So we are hearing what people are saying, and we are committed to bringing something back. Our goal, understanding that we want to do a really thorough look at this, is to bring something back by June, in which case we will have all of this information for council discussion and consideration.
Okay, so is June before the next registration?
So Typically, spring and fall, through the warden, typically spring and fall is where we have the most issue. We don't typically have issue with our summer registration because there's a lot of families on vacation and numbers are down because of the weather, et cetera. So the idea was that we definitely wanted to get it done before fall. We just want to ensure we get as much information as possible. So while we might not have it for that registration, we're aiming for June, but staff do feel we might have it by May, but our goal is June. We are still continuing to work on other pieces. So we are looking at the various staffing numbers we have in place, and already we've been able to accommodate almost 100 more registrations just by adjusting some of our staffing for the various programs and things. So we do try to do that. We do encourage everyone to use the waitlist option because it does prove effective in a lot of cases. So that's our rationale behind that. If we tried to do it too quickly, I just fear that we wouldn't have all of the appropriate information in place.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on, lastly, I just wanted to bring up the topic of green bin disposals. It's been brought to my attention that green bins, you know, if the cover hinge breaks off or the wheels break off, that the green bins are go to the landfills. Just wondering, I'm assuming that that is correct, that this is through to staff.
Okay, Jesse.
Through Madam Warden, I would encourage anyone that's incurred damaged green cart to call the solid waste hotline. And depending on the scenario, staff will walk them through that. Some carts are repaired, carts can get swapped out depending on the scenario, and to go through that based on the specific needs of any green cart scenario. That said and ultimately a significantly damaged cart that is at end of life and end of use typically would end up in a C&D cell is what would typically happen. It's not actually able to be recycled as per our Blue Bag program where we send things to a recycled processor. These carts are not viable for that program. They're not accepted by our processor.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, apparently Halifax County has a program whereby they chip up chip is what they refer to it as, chip up their green bins and make lawn chairs and picnic tables out of them, and apparently they're practically indestructible. I was just wondering, it's not at their actual compost facility, it's at another facility, but you know, it might be something that we might, just the sheer size of them in a landfill, they're so huge, you know, if we're getting that many in, it might be something that we might want to look into. That might be a worthwhile way, especially where it's a compost type of thing. You know, it seems in keeping that if we could do something with them that, you know, repurpose them, it might be something to look into, so. And no comment necessary. I think that's it from District 1. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a couple of counselors with questions. Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I guess it's not so much a question. I really hope, I hear what staff said on Councillor Garden-Cole's question around the swimming programs and the slots awarded. I really hope that they really consider the fact that it'll be a very hard pill to swallow for many who are supporting this pay through taxes, that aquatic center, and that if they're bumped by somebody outside who is not supporting this, that will be a very, very hard pill to swallow. So I really hope that's taken into consideration when this report comes back. Thank you.
Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Coming from a community on a border, so our kids go to West Hands for facilities. They go to Sackville for swimming, and they're also paying part of that swim pool here. So in the report, I want something about that. I don't want to be affected by retaliation from other municipalities to our residents too. Thank you.
And I know that staff's report will take all of those things into consideration because.
I just want to make sure that, thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Garden-Cole? Councillor Green.
Just to extend congratulations to Hants North on their win. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet in District 6.
Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I have a couple things. I attended a fundraising for a family that lost their trailer, and one day the community rallied to raise $21,000 for them. And on top of that, the GoFundMe raised about $11,000, and we did a breakfast at my restaurant, $3,500. And they're trying to rebuild that trailer, and you won't believe how good of a community I'm representing. Their biggest expense was going to be the electric, and one electrician called and offered to do it all for just the material. And other people offer some materials too, so I'm very proud to represent that community. Thank you. And I met with the fire department, and they were very, very appreciative of staff support with their budgeting and their finance. And to me, they look in great shape, and thank you for Sue and her staff for all the advice they give them. That's all for now. Thank you.
Counselor Tingley.
I attended the meeting with Councillor McPhee in Shubenacadie on March 3rd. The ATENS that he's referring to is a group called After Trauma Empowerment Network that support people that have suffered a trauma. Like they started, I think, after the Portapique shooting, and that has to do with the residential schools and that sort of thing. But it could be other types of trauma. But there was also people there from the East Hants Health Board, and they were talking about things they do to support activities and supports to the community. And I just attended to find, it was just the first meeting I've ever gone to. I just attended to find out what it was all about. On March 9th, I attended Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Group Insurance meeting. This group has been meeting just about a year now, and they've been interviewing brokers and looking into what's going on with insurance premiums and claims, what can be done with risk management, trying to learn a little bit more about frequencies and severity of claims that municipalities are having in the exposures. Mike Hatfield is on this committee, and they're just in an information gathering process right now, but I can see some good things coming out of that at some point in time. This committee was struck, I guess, years ago back in the mid-90s when municipalities were having difficulty purchasing insurance at all. And if they could purchase it, were purchasing it for a high rate, and they were able to help municipalities at that time. And there's a lot of municipalities that are purchasing insurance through that program now, but you'll hear more from NSFM. NSFM staff are doing interviews with our current brokers. They've interviewed other brokers that are not current brokers just to get information. They're not looking at switching brokers or insurance or anything like that, just trying to get a handle on understanding on what's going on in the insurance business. I have a little bit of idea what's going on, but maybe a little bit more than a little idea, but the committee will report at some point in time. I attended a Lance Rec meeting just the other night on the 27th. They're in good shape financially, and they're doing fairly well with volunteers, although they've got a core group of main volunteers, and they'd like to get more volunteers, and probably like many other volunteer organizations. What else? Yeah, I received some calls, like Councillor Garden Cole, about the pool, mainly around being able to book for lessons, I guess. And I thought staff responded very well, and responded at least to one person that contacted me, and that person seemed to be satisfied with their response for now. I know it's a tough situation, And I hear what Eli's saying. Some people that are right on the border of HRM have contributed a lot to our facilities here. They've been involved in building some, like, there's people in HRM that had a big hand in the development of the Sportsplex and operation of the Sportsplex. They just live on the other side of the river in Halifax County, or on the other side of the highway in just on the other side of the highway from the big stop in Enfield. But they may be in Halifax County, but they almost should be East Hants citizens. You know, they're that much involved with us. So I don't know how this gets all worked out in the end, but I'm sure staff will do a good job of coming back with some recommendations to us. Something that happened in Lance in the last week, there was somebody spilled a lot of glass over a number of streets. Suspect maybe it was a garbage truck. In any event, staff got involved in this very quickly. The communication they had with people through the app, the waste management app, is excellent. Feedback I received was, people were very happy with the response from it, and I just would like to thank staff for the fine job on that. That was an issue where, these things come in and they got to consider whether it's their responsibility to clean it up or not. Some of the roads belong to the province, some of them belong to the municipality. Is the contractor liable? What do you do? They obviously got agreements with people how to proceed, and the municipality took it in their own hands to get it cleaned up, and if there is any costs, my understanding it'll go back to the waste disposal people. Anyway, thanks very much for that, and that's about all I got to report.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just a quick question through to the councillor. NSFM, during the insurance discussions, was there any mention or any thought about offering insurance to individual councillors, whether it was dental or life insurance or medical, as a broad blanket? Or
the group that I'm involved is not dealing with medical or dental. They're basically dealing with property and casualty, property liability, cyber, that sort of thing. The medical and disability, that would be a different section of NSFM that deal with that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. That's all.
I can add a bit to that. That currently is a decision or policy of individual councils. Some councils do offer different insurance benefits to councillors, and we have in the past had reports. It's been quite some time. And if it's something you'd like to see a report on, if we just had a motion, that would be entirely appropriate.
I'll make that motion. We get a report on insurance that's available to councillors.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Green. Discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Councillor Rhino.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Councillor Hingley's done, but if he is done, I forgot 2 items there that I'd like to ask about.
Do you have anything further, Councillor Tingley? Go ahead, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you. No, it just came to me, I haven't heard anything on that light, that emergency light in South Maitland, safety light in South Maitland at the intersection. I'm wondering if our staff has any more that they can add to that. Have they been in touch with Nova Scotia Power or to see where we stand in the queue?
Through Madam Warden, yes, staff have been following up regularly, waiting for cost estimates from Nova Scotia Power. They are not responding or to us at this point. It's in the queue. But where we are, like they were out on site to create the estimate. I don't know what the delay is on them returning the information to us, but that's where we're at this point.
I guess my question is, can we follow up on that, or do we follow up on a timely basis to see where we stand?
It's been weekly.
Oh, it's been weekly. Oh, good. I'm very impressed with that.
No, it's incredible actually that the delay.
No, I understand the delay. I was just more or less making sure that it was being followed up on a regular basis. And from what I hear, that a weekly is very good. I appreciate that. The second thing is, I would wonder if council would give some consideration to having these barriers removed at some point within the next 6 months. It really is starting to fray on a lot of things, and I'd like to, if they would give consideration to removing them. I think we're past the scare at this point. Thank you.
Any decision on that would have to be decided by council, and I do know that there are some councillors who still like to see these barriers stay here, and I would be one of them. But we could certainly have that discussion perhaps at the next executive meeting. Councillor Musa?
Yeah, I forgot one item too, so Jesse, through you, Madam Warden, to Jesse, about the garbage removal. There was an incident in Mount Uniacke where one day, like, I think it was a storm or something, I don't know. Councilor Perry was dealing with it, but it was in my district and I didn't get any information about it. But there was miscommunication between staff and resident about about the day of, like, it was a storm and you know, in a rural area, you cannot leave your garbage, like the crow will dig in it in the same night. So people put their garbage in, took them out. They didn't know when the next day is gonna be, and they were told 2 weeks, and the garbage truck was in the morning and gone, and before anybody put their garbage out. So we need some good communication with the resident for garbage removal.
Through Madam Warden, I won't talk to that specific instance, but I would suggest there's been some challenges over the last 2 months with response times on solid waste collections and triaging issues. That's likely linked to the fact that on Tuesday, we launch our new contract with Regroup for collection companies. So as that's happening, there's a lot of phasing out happening with our current contractor. We're excited about the new contract with Regroup. It launches, like I said, on Tuesday. I was speaking before council with one of the councillors who had seen Regroup trucks around neighborhoods. They have been onboarding for weeks. They've been in this building this week. They're going to be at the Waste Management Center on Monday, going over another orientation and a full launch. And so with that, it's always challenging at the end of a contract with information gaps and being able to communicate while folks struggle to finish out a contract, and it's unfortunate. But I am looking forward to April and a fresh start for our collection groups.
Oh, okay. I thought they already started and the problem with them, so it's finishing. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mitchell?
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden. Just want to publicly acknowledge the contributions that Lino Rabai does for the fire department and for other community groups in the neighborhood. It's very appreciative, and I think all the groups are saying thank you through me. Thank you.
And just before we wind up, I'd just like to add that a bit of an exciting time. A young man from Hants North named Sam Winter has been recruited by a soccer team from British Columbia to attend a fairly significant competition in Texas. And so he's very excited, and the team members will be from BC, from Ontario, and a couple from Nova Scotia. And to be recognized at that level and be recruited, you know, from soccer players across the country is pretty exciting. And I'd just like to publicly wish him well and all the best. I believe they leave tomorrow for the tournament. And I did neglect to mention as well that for the first time in, well, not the first time I'm taking a vacation in 26 years, but the first time that I am taking a 2-week vacation in over 26 years. And I will be away from April the 8th until the 22nd. So just for council's information. So that concludes business from councilors. We do have on the docket some in-camera items. There are 2 land issues. There is the bylaw issue that we carried forward from correspondence for information or decision, I forget which. And there is also a personnel issue. So we will move in camera to discuss those issues. Would council like a 5-minute break while staff move us in camera? Okay, so we will have a 5-minute break. Well, let's make it, let's be back at 9:05. Let me know when we're clear. Did we move to? No. My apologies, folks, we neglected to make a motion to go in camera. Moved by Counselor Green, seconded by Counselor Musa. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. We'll give staff a few would report that we met in camera to discuss some land issues and a couple of legal issues, or a legal issue and a personnel issue. There are no motions coming forward from those discussions. Direction was given to staff in camera. I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh, set the date and time of the next council meeting. April the 18th, regular meeting, policy and in camera, and April 26th, regular meeting of council.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Musa. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. I'd now be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Thank you very much, folks.